Public pensions, they're a huge promise. We pay our teachers, our police, our firefighters for the incredible work they do today. But we also promise them a secure retirement, sometimes decades down the line. So, how on earth do governments and taxpayers make sure that a promise made today is a promise that can actually be kept tomorrow? Well, the answer lies in a pretty powerful financial tool. I mean, really think about it for a second. How can a city look at a 25-year-old brand new firefighter and say with any confidence, don't worry, the money for your retirement will be ready and waiting for you in 30 years? This isn't just a wild guess, right? It's a massive financial puzzle, and you need a very special tool to solve it. And that tool is called an actuarial valuation. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a financial GPS for a pension plan. It takes a detailed snapshot of where the plan is right now, how much cash it has, how many promises it's on the hook for, and then it projects all of that into the future to see if we're on the right path. So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to really dig into that financial GPS idea. Then we'll peek under the hood to see the assumptions that make it all work. After that, we'll look at the big balance sheet it spits out, how it helps the plan stay on track, and then, the most important part, we'll talk about why any of this actually matters to you. All right, let's dive right in. Our first stop, really understanding this valuation as a navigation tool. It's all about looking at this super long and complicated journey. We're talking decades of contributions and payments, and trying to plot the absolute most responsible financial course to get from point A to point B. But, like any GPS, this tool is only as good as the information you feed it. So to really get how it works, we have to pop the hood and look at the core assumptions that are really powering this whole calculation. And these assumptions, they basically fall into two big buckets. On one side, you have assumptions about people. Actuaries have to make educated guesses on things like, how long are employees going to live? Will they stick with the job for a full career or leave early? When will they actually decide to retire? Then, on the other side, you have the money assumptions. How much can we realistically expect the plan's investments to earn? How fast will salaries go up? And what's inflation going to look like? Getting these assumptions as right as possible is absolutely key to getting an accurate forecast. And this isn't something they just do once and then, forget about it. Nope, it is a continuous cycle. It all starts with a preliminary review of where the plan stands. Then comes the heavy lifting, data and asset preparation, where they gather info on every single person and every single investment. Next, they run the valuation, using some pretty complex models to crunch all those numbers. And finally, they issue a final report, which gives everyone the updated map until the next cycle begins. And this whole cycle gets repeated at least every 2 years. Why? Because the world changes. The market goes up, the market goes down, people's behaviors shift. These regular check-ins are absolutely essential to spot any problems early and make small corrections along the way. It's all about avoiding those really nasty financial surprises down the road. So after the actuaries run all those numbers and go through that whole cycle, what's the big result? Well, it all pretty much comes down to one key document, the big balance sheet. It's really just a simple way of weighing the promises the plan has made against the actual money it has in the bank. It all boils down to this simple balancing act. Picture a scale. On one side, you've got the actuarial accrued liability. That's just the fancy term for the value, in today's dollars, of all the pension promises that have been earned so far. And on the other side of the scale, you have the plan assets. That's the actual pot of money that's been invested to pay for all those promises. Okay, so this balancing act gives us two super important numbers. If the liability side is heavier than the asset side, that gap is called the unfunded liability, or UAL. That's the shortfall, measured in actual dollars. But to get a quick snapshot of the plan's overall health, we calculate the funded ratio. You just take the assets, divide by the liabilities, and boom, you get a percentage. It's like a simple health score for the whole system. And that health score, that funded ratio, leads to a pretty obvious question. What's the goal? You'd think it's just getting to 100% and, mission accomplished. But in the real world of pensions, 100% funding is a constantly moving target. So why does it move so much? Well, for one, the stock market. The value of the plan's assets literally changes every single day. Also, those assumptions we talked about might need an update. Maybe new data shows people are living longer than we thought, or maybe the plan benefits get changed. And by the way, that old idea that being 80% funded is good enough, yeah, that's pretty much considered a myth these days. The real goal is having a credible plan to get all the way to 100%. And to deal with all this uncertainty, pension plans have had to get a lot more cautious, and this chart shows that trend perfectly.
If you look back to 2003, tons of pension systems were banking on really high 8% plus investment returns each year. But look at today, very few do. By using more realistic, more conservative assumptions, plans are building a much safer path forward, one that relies a lot less on hoping for huge wins in the stock market.
And that path also has to be able to adapt to major, unexpected events. The original goal, set way back in 1989, was to get fully funded by 2028. But then 2008 happened. The massive financial crisis caused devastating investment losses. So to give these systems a fighting chance to recover, the target date was pushed out to 2040. It's a perfect example of how these are truly long-term plans that have to be able to weather some serious economic storms.
Okay, so we've waded through a lot of assumptions, liabilities, and funded ratios, but let's bring it all home. Why should any of this actually matter to you, whether you're a public employee or just a regular taxpayer?
Well, it really all comes down to this one core principle: the cost of a public employee's service, and that includes their future pension, should be paid for while they are actually working and providing that service to all of us. It should never be kicked down the road for our kids and grandkids to figure out. And this powerful concept has a name. It's called intergenerational fairness. It's just a simple, common sense idea that one generation shouldn't have to pay the bills for the generation that came before it. We pay for the services we get today, including the full cost of the people who provide them. So, what does this actually mean in the real world? For taxpayers, it means that our cities and states are on solid financial ground, which prevents some kind of future crisis where taxes have to be jacked up to cover a massive shortfall. And for public employees, it means true security. It's the peace of mind of knowing that the promise of retirement is being backed up by a real plan with real money, not just wishful thinking. So in the end, this whole complicated process, this financial GPS, it really forces all of us to confront a fundamental question. It's this constant balancing act between what we spend today and what we save for tomorrow. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. How much certainty are we really willing to pay for today in order to truly secure the promises of tomorrow?